center. And from that point on, I really have totally changed as a person. I see everything differently. My relationships are different. I see life through a completely different lens. And so that was the beginning, I suppose, just to answer the question shortly, if I maybe too late now, but it was just basically an investigation of science and nature and all that stuff, and that led me to the realization that there is a creator.
First of all, I want to say awesome, Tommy, but I want you guys to take as much time as you need. Don't worry about, somebody falling over or something or cracking their head. I want to hear it. I want to hear it. I think that it's edifying personally. Let's go with Ryan. Do you got a microphone? Mr. Squidman?
You're with us, Prudence.
Okay, Richard Raspberry. Oh.
Looks like a few people are getting raptured there, Brett.
It wasn't me. Hopefully he'll get back with us. Lindsay, would you like to explain why? Goodness gracious. Okay, how about Mona Lisa? Hey, Mona.
Hello, guys. So, you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Ah, okay.
Coming in clear?
I only can say why I don't believe. If that's okay?
Okay, just as long as you tell us what you do believe afterwards, though.
Oh, okay, that's what I can say first. I believe, if it's a sort of belief, it's humanity. That's what I believe in, and I don't believe in any religion, because I grew up as a Catholic child, and my mother, she wasn't religious. It was just a traditional Catholic, You get baptized because everybody gets baptized. And so my mother wasn't religious. And for me, I was taught everything from the Bible and things in school, okay? But I never believed it. I don't know why. I never believed that stuff. I liked some stuff, the romantic view of the movies from Jesus, things like that. But this has nothing to do with believing, right? It's just a romantic thing I saw in the movies and in the nice God and nice Jesus and so. But when you start reading the Bible, and this is not so nice anymore, and I said, okay, it's all crap. So I don't know. This is not, for me. Nice is different, and so I stay with my nice, and I hope I do the best in my life with humanity and with human rights and things like that. That's what I count on. So my belief really is a sort of belief which has nothing to do with faith, or that one guy, YouTube got TiVo radio show. That was you. You said hope. Yeah, I got hope. Of course, I got hope, but it has nothing to do with faith or belief, because hope is something you hope that it turns out good. I think that this is a situation. I don't have a kind of hope for the whole life. It's just situations. I hope things go good.
All right.
So.
All right, Mona Lisa. Before I move to the next person, I
don't.
Oh, sorry, you're having some kind of delay. Is she freezing up on you guys' end, or is that just me?
Yeah.
Man, don't you just hate it whenever the thing freezes? It always freezes when you're making like a really rough thing. I've always got my mouth open and eyes crossed every time I freeze. I don't know what that's all about. All right, so let's go with Jordan.
Hey guys. So what do I believe? I guess I would say that I started my belief journey when I was just a young girl, probably 6 or 7 years old, but I don't know that I had the same, well, I know I didn't have the same kind of situation then as I do now. I am 52, so I've been a Christian over 40 years, and I would say that I believe just because it's not really belief anymore. I have a relationship with the Lord. I don't offer that as evidence for anyone else, my personal experiences with Him. There's no way to do that. I can have that kind of communication with other believers because they know what I'm talking about, because they've experienced, you know, that relationship with Him, that He does make Himself known to us very real and very personally. So it's not something that I offer to anyone externally as far as evidence goes, but it is for me. It's certainly my way of knowing absolutely that I have a relationship with Him. He communicates with me. He talks to me. He comforts me, and guides me. I don't know how I can put that into words, and I don't. Again, there's no way for me to verbalize and explain that fully to an unbeliever, but certainly in a room full of believers, many people would go, yes, yes, absolutely. I don't know what else I could say to that, Brett. It's really not a matter of believing because you have that relationship. You have that full experience of Him, if that makes any sense. Anyway.
Amen. Amen.
I'm going to ask Lindsay's sister. I can see that she's sitting in front of the camera. Lindsay's sister, do you have your mic working? Lindsay's sister, the one sitting there shaking your head?
I don't know how to take like the video off, and I didn't want to exit out of Lindsay's program, so
It's working.
listening.
Now, Lindsay, you and I were in another room, and you had said that God is imaginary. Still hold to that?
I don't know Lindsay's beliefs. I'm just like on this computer using it, and
Okay.
I don't know how to make it non-camera like.
Weren't you the one that said that God is imaginary, though, right?
No, I said that people have relationships with imaginary friends.
Okay, but is God imaginary to you? Come on, I'm not going to get...
No comment. I'm just going to say no comment.
All right, can you at least answer me this, though? Where did your imagination come from?
The loneliness of not having friends as a child, I guess. Yep, that childhood imaginary friend. My imagination's in my brain. I don't know how it works entirely.
Well, where in your brain is your imagination? Is it in the front?
A specific lobe that I don't remember.
Right, I think you're gonna
I'm
break
sure.
it.
I know. I'm just being rough. It's all good, Lindsay. I'll get you off the hook. All right?
Oh, I'm not Lindsay. I'm Alex. I'm gonna turn this camera off now, though.
Okay, Alex. Hey, be part of the conversation. No need to be shy. All right, Richard. Why? Why? Oh, it's Xbox. Go ahead and show them in the broadcast.
Xbox.
You having a problem? That's just type like X over there or something. Oh, you put 2 X's. All right, Xbox, have you heard the question that's been put forth so far?
Oh, no. I'm hearing like a banging sound. Is that you? Or?
Well, basically, what I've done is I kind of pretty much got a good idea from all the individuals in the room what they believe and what some folks claim to not believe. But what I asked the question is, and as Tommy stated, it's heavy. Why do you believe or don't believe what you're into? What you got for us, Xbox?
About heaven? Is that what you said?
Well, it's basically about your belief in general.
Oh, okay. Like why I have it or why I don't have it, or...
Well, what I'd like...
I'm sorry, I was hearing that banging sound that you muted as you were asking.
What I would like whenever talking to a person that is either agnostic or atheist, of course, it's going to be the short answer of lacking a belief. But what I would like to know is what your alternative for sentience, consciousness, life itself, if possible.
And the best thing I've heard, and I don't know too deeply about it, is just emergence. Something being more than the sum of their parts. Now, other than that, evolutionary can kind of show of how our brains got bigger and started to develop more neural paths and stuff like that. But I don't think sentient and stuff like that's defined well enough by not just you, by anybody so I'm not real sure.
You know who John Lennox is?
Yeah, the Catholic apologist that you're talking about?
Well, he's not just that. He's also one of the greatest mathematicians of our time.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about then, yeah.
He states that mathematically it is beyond impossible for life to just come into being like that, just by chemicals slamming together and lightning bolts hitting them.
Right. Does he say that? Does he say that it's the impossible, or does he say that it's so improbable that it's impossible?
He says mathematically impossible.
Okay. Yeah. That's what, when someone says mathematically impossible, they mean it's 0.00000000001 chance of it happening.
Right.
So yeah, so I understand. I do think if that is how it came about, if evolution or whatever is how it came about, then it was us winning the lotto kind of thing. I don't know that that's the case, but but you know what I mean?
I hear you. All right.
Otherwise we would see it arising all over the place.
It's a good point. Good point. I'm going to ask you an interesting question here in a little bit, but I'd like to see why Richard believes what he believes. Real quick.
Yeah, you know why I believe what I believe. I've said it many a time. I thought I'd share with you on the side in the chat box here the lyrics to the Atheist theme tune. It comes from the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. So there you go. Anyone wants to know?
My goodness, there's 3 Bretts in the room here. Oof. All right, what about you, 3 evidence for you?
I've got a real quick question for you, Brett. I'm sorry, if you're done, evidence. I thought you were done. Sorry. Okay. Real quick question for you, Brett. Within your question, kind of thing, are you smuggling God into that? Or are you just saying, because I always view it as, even with intelligent design or creation, however you want to put it, that I don't see it that it has to be a God. It could just be a sufficient intelligence that creates life.
That's fascinating.
I just wasn't sure. I'm not trying to say you're deceiving and smuggling it in there. I just didn't know if that's kind of the direction you were going. Either.
Well, I'm interested in understanding why people have the views they do. As you know, Xbox, I actually used to be a militant atheist, and even then I've always been fascinated on what makes people tick. Why people believe what they believe and think the way they think. What did you say, Xbox?
No, I was agreeing with you. Yeah, yeah, same thing.
I feel like it's possible to actually learn from atheists, other religious folks, people of other religions, and I'm open to hearing why people came to the position that they are. That's why. Am I going to smuggle God into this conversation sooner or later? You're damn right. All right, I got a question for you as well as Mr. Evidence for you, if you guys don't mind.
Yeah, shoot.
All right, from the naturalistic point of view, you would have to support the idea that chemicals came together and created all the sentience and consciousness on this earth, correct?
I think maybe if you take a purely naturalistic view, that's what it would lead to. I don't know that I would have to back it up that that's the case, because I'm not saying absolutely that's the case. That's just me talking.
Okay.
But I think if someone did make the statement that there is only the natural, there's no room for anything else, I think they would have to back that up.
Right. What about you, Mr. Evidence? Okay, now it's time for me to, I'm going to be intellectually honest with you. Now comes the smuggle time. Are you ready?
Right on.
Okay. If you're willing to accept that chemicals on the earth somehow formed life and a mind consciousness, then would you be able to accept that when the entire universe, nature and time itself, was in one single source, that a powerful mind could have came from it, or been within it, or a part of it all times?
Yeah, I wouldn't rule that out at all. That's what I was saying. I'm kind of the naturalistic view I take. I don't think that everything necessarily is all matter and all that. I leave room open for the possibility of even if a god, or even if it wasn't a god, like I said, and just a sufficient enough intelligence, or maybe just a natural phenomenon that, or a supernatural phenomenon that could do something.
You agree that if a mind was within the singularity, the very source of power, then this very entity would have to be ageless, timeless, outside of space and time itself in order to do this.
Yeah, I don't think it would have to be, but but for our universe, the way, like you're saying, it would have had to have been outside of it to make it. I mean, yeah, I agree.
Okay, so basically you've got 9 times out of 10 all the attributes you'd be looking for in order to have your deity, right? Or at least your powerful advanced mind of the universe. And if it was conscious, sentient, and aware of what was going on, then it would have been the creator of the universe and the power source behind it. Is that reasonable and rational to come to that point for you?
Yeah. I have a problem with the attributes and such, but I think if you did create it, you'd have to be out of it. I don't think that you can be out of it, but I think you would. That would follow.
Where's the muted space?
What I'm trying to make sure of here, though, Xbox, is has it at least come to your conclusion that it would be reasonable and rational to open up the possibilities that that could be the case?
Yeah, that's what I said. I don't close that possibility off at all. Maybe there is a way that all that stuff could work, and those attributes, like I said, that I don't necessarily understand or have problems with. Maybe they can. Maybe I definitely leave that possibility open. Yeah,
How do you know that?
you would never be able to make, and if you were in a timeless state, there's at no point that you could say, okay, I decide to make something, because that's a temporal thing.
I agree that if it was me as a person or you as a person in that type of environment, it probably wouldn't work out too well, but for a powerful mind that is plugged into this universe, not a problem. Go ahead, Rich.
Two guys, I think it was Xbox and the three evidence guy, was saying you can't exist outside of space and time. How do they know that?
I don't. That's why I said I leave the possibility of, even if I can't understand some of these attributes or I have problems with them, evidence takes a little harder than I do. I would leave the possibility that maybe that happens and I have no way of understanding it. I'm only limited by what I can conceive.
So you're saying conceptually?
Right.
I see.
Right. You know what I mean? I can imagine all kinds of stuff, but I can't. I'm only limited by what I know. Period. I guess.
So if I said, sorry, Brett. I was going to ask a quick question. So for either of you guys who want to answer this question, if I said to you, conceptualize, imagine a pink dinosaur running past your window right now. Now, if you bring that to your imagination, so to the point where you can actually envision it, to the point where it's actually just running past your window, it's not actually there, but your mind is putting it there. So even in your mind, you can conceptualize of things outside of space and time. I'm saying mentally. So at what point can we say what part of you can't exist outside space and time? Surely you're talking purely about the physical side and not a spiritual side.
Just like you're the pink unicorn running past my window, I can conceptualize that, but I can't. There's no way just from that is of it figuring out if it really happened and how it happened and what caused, like how that actually worked.
Well,
You do. Evidence.
but you're talking about physical. You're talking about the matter, the physical attributes. Because are you talking about survival? Are you talking about survival? Because obviously you can't survive outside of space and time. If you're talking about physical, do what body. Well, no, that's assumption. That's assumed. I mean, even one of your hang on. Even one of your preachers, Lawrence Krauss, believes there's no such thing as nothing. So you've got to be careful about where you're going with that.
Well, hey, I got a question then, Reza. Do you take a look on God and the creation as he created ex nihilo, or do you think God always existed and everything from what I read from the Bible is that there was no ex nihilo, God was always there, and so God was something. So everything flows actually from God.
Well, the Bible says in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. Hiya, Veckel. And it says, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters, the deep, as it says. You can translate that as you like, but I assume, going from that, there's properties of nature we don't yet know about. I mean, we're always discovering new particles, and there's even been the speculation of antimatter, dark energy, these sorts of things. I mean, even magnetism was once thought to be some sort of hocus pocus until we've discovered attractions and stuff, and gravity too. So
we barely have any ideas about gravity.
May I have evidence question real quick. Evidence you had brought up Albert Einstein. Are you still there? Can you do me a favor? Do you see the text chat? I'm going to post something here in a moment. Can you read this out loud, please? Go ahead. Can you please read this out
Yeah,
loud?
I'll read it out for him. The more I study. Okay. Okay.
All right, go ahead, Xbox. Read it out loud, please.
The more I study science, the more I believe in God. Albert Einstein's quote. And just to I guess elaborate on that, when Einstein his conceptions of God was actually more like the universe. Everything in the universe is what he called God.
I hear what you're saying on that. I would say that if I were to ask Veckel and Rich right now, is God within all things? God is creation? They would most likely say, what? But you
Well,
don't.
you're saying exists. Yes. Well, hang on. Oh, go on. Go on then. Go on.
Well, Mr. Evidence, do you feel that if atheists are going to point the finger at religious folks and state, nah, no God, that you should have some kind of alternative, something to lay on the table for us? Okay. Right. So, if no God, no intelligent mind, then how did the universe come into being? You seem to know quite a bit about the universe. You're stating that it's not possible to exist outside of it, even though, hell, there's some scientists out there that claim there's parallel universes, multiverses, but you state that's not possible. Why is why is? Okay. Mr. Evidence and Xbox, do you agree that evolution breaks the law of entropy? You know what entropy is.
How are you defining entropy there?
The laws of entropy state that over time, things become disorder.
I think maybe by our perspective you could say evolution does that, but that's only, I don't think as a universal law that it doesn't.
Let me put this forth to you, and then we'll have Richard rock and roll on this because he loves this topic. Entropy states that we lose information. Things go into chaotic motion and disorder. Pure chaos. No information added, only lost. Evolution states, however, that somehow some little slimy-ass organism turned into a fish with legs and arms and started turning into rat creatures, lizards, monkeys, and all kinds of freaky hopscotch and species nonsense, and here we are today. That goes against the laws of the universe, friends. Go ahead.
I don't think that's actually, that might be I guess in a way it might be changing information, but I don't think it actually is a loss of information. Just like if you were to cremate me right now, it wouldn't be a loss of information, it would just be a transformation of that information.
Want to go for it, Rich and Beck? I'm going to go get me a coffee.
Yeah, or at least that's how I see it. But I don't know a ton about evolution though either, so.
So, evidence. Sorry, I interrupted you. So what would you say is, because you appear to believe in evolution, what would be the best evidence that you would give? I mean, being your name is evidence for you, I assume you have some good weight. Yeah, your best evidence for evolution. Go with DNA then. How do you extrapolate that life become more complex in a beneficial way, or a way that adapts to promote new novel features through DNA? What's your theory? Well, it is a theory. Well, if you go talk about dogs, if you want to talk about dogs, then I suppose you need to first of all explain before you. Well, I suppose you could just talk about the allele frequency distribution, and you can go from there. Try and if you can present a good case for evolution using just that basic premise or using just that basic equation, I suppose the conversation can go forward from there, can't it? Mm-hmm. Well, no, I mean, I assume you're adhering to a Darwinistic evolutionary model. So how, going from the basis of just a simple plotting allele frequencies, how do you extrapolate to say, aha, there you go, evolution, there's the evidence? Okay, for example, you're talking about dogs, okay? So you take a trait, say long ears or short coat or whatever, and you breed dogs together, or you allow them to breed naturally, and you measure the traits in the offspring. And you do this for many, many generations, and you work out which traits have been made predominant, which traits have been excluded from the gene pool. And doing this, you can get a pretty good picture for how. Well, you can demonstrate. I mean, this is not new news. The Mendel did this a long, long time ago, showing that you only get deformed or less luxurious offspring. So, how just using the basis we can test, just using allele frequency distributions, how can you extrapolate to say, look, there you go, there's good evidence for evolution, Mr. Raspberry?
I can help out with the answer a little bit, is that the information is still there. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so if all your long coat dogs then survive and all your short coat dogs go extinct or die off due to the cold weather, as you say, then what happens to the genome? Does it increase the information, or is the information being halved?
No, the information stays there. It's just some genes are turned on and off kind of thing.
Well, no, we're talking about exact genes being passed on. If certain genes have been removed from the gene pool, they're no longer there. So how does that say, aha, evolution?
That's what I'm trying to say. On a level of a gene copies over and changes a little bit, but the original one is still there intact, maybe just turned off. And that's how they see that change in that next gene is a change, and that's the change in the allele frequency of it. I mean, it's...
Well, no, because alleles are lost, you see. If you keep breeding, say if you kept breeding Great Danes, and you wanted ones of longer legs, say, so you only breed the ones of longer legs.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, what you get from that stock will only be able to produce long legs.
Right.
So you've lost information. So to say it's switched off, that's not the case.
Yeah, no, the gene for the short legs is still there, just turned off.
Hello?
Could you hear me? The original genes are still there. For short legs, they're just turned off and changed, and the copy of it is changed to make long legs.
Right. So
it's not really a loss.
A typical.
It's not there.
Oh, go on.
It's not a loss in the sense that it's not there anymore. It's just not being utilized. That's why people will go through and say that we're still fish or we're still primate. Like all that stuff is still there. It's just turned off. And that's not to say that some things can.
That's not true. That's not true. But,
some things can be lost. But it's not on, like, I guess, the extent that it seems.
Well, in 2004, a study was done on beneficial mutations, trying to plot the fixation rate of beneficial mutations, and there was something like 400,000 and 4,500 mutations registered across these plant species, and of the 450,000, whatever it was, mutation hits, 180 was supposed to be beneficial, but it actually turned out that nowhere near that amount was beneficial. So
they don't have to be.
Well, no, they do. If we're talking about, hang on a second. If you're talking about developing a new feature, let's talk hypothetically for a moment, but let's use the evolutionary model. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say we have a fish with no eyes. Okay. This fish doesn't have the genes for eyes. How do we acquire the genes, the information to start coding for the proteins and the instructions, the blueprints for where those eyes should be developed? Where does that information come from using your theory?
Okay, yeah, the original genes that they have are or the DNA that gets copies over, and I forget this sentence. There's an easy way to use it using the alphabet, and you can make a sentence, and then you can slowly add letters to that sentence. But the DNA would, from that mutation, like I said, no eyes, well then it gets copied, and the copy slightly changes, and then the next copy from it slightly changes. Then the next copy from it slightly changes until things like an eye would develop just over a longer period of time because of how slight the changes are. It doesn't always mean that these slight changes are going to end up giving them an eye. They might, 10,000 years later die off because of some other force. But say in a perfect instance where it did survive,
Sure.
These little changes would eventually be an eye.
Sure. Well, that's what would happen inside the theory. But the evidence shows, if we're looking at the rate of mutations and how they take place, if we're looking at species and mutations take place from the paternal line and the maternal line, from the father and the mother and the offspring, all we're seeing is an accumulation of mutations which don't benefit the organism. So to say that these gradual steps can lead towards something as functional as an eye, using this copy and slowly gradual step-by-step method, isn't actually a very fruitful idea, because it doesn't follow on from the data. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, the reason is, like, I think how you're seeing it is, say that fish that's developing the eye in a group of fish that have the same thing and are working with it. Well, actually, during that whole process, there are thousands to hundreds of that, maybe even millions that die off in that process because of other factors. So the ones that end up getting the eye that we see now are the only ones that survived through that. There might have been other ones that did develop the eye, but for some other reason, a natural force, say they couldn't survive in whatever temperature the water was. But a certain set of them with eyes could. We have way more dead than we have alive.
Sure, that's all fair and well if the theory, if we had evidence for that. But the point is, it's if you're talking purely from hypotheticals to try and say, oh, this sounds very nice, this is how it could work. But when we're looking at the data and the accumulation of mutation, but specifically the rate in which these mutations took place, we're seeing not this predominant increase or allowance for certain genes to be copied in a way that they would allow for these developments take place, but instead what you're seeing is a detrimental effect, and this is carrying on. This is in all species. This isn't just some species. It's in bacteria. It's in humans. It's in every living creature there is.
Well, that's happened in the past as well. That is something that's happened throughout all of the time. Evolution does include non-beneficial features as well as part of it. Not everything in evolution is beneficial.
Right, yeah, I understand that. Okay. But what I'm saying is, going from just the data alone, if we're looking at just evidence brought up dogs, and I was saying, well, if you look at the dogs, you can trace I think it's the BMP3 gene back to a wolf-like dog. Now, there's certain things which are interesting about this, because you look at these syphilic traits, the projections of the dog's facial features and such across different breeds. And what's interesting is dogs which tend to be higher, more more mutated, so say something like the bulldog, they tend to have a higher sexual attraction to something which is in a more more pure in its genome. It's less it's been less I'm making this into a very confusing sentence. It's become so mutated that say you look at the a more like a dog or a fox or something, that these animals which have less mutation are actually more sexually choiceful for the dogs which have high mutation. So I think even dogs, with dogs which wouldn't survive in the wild if it wasn't for human intervention, even still, you can't really allow for this predominant creation of new novel features, any features, not an eye, not a nose. I mean, do you know evolutionists believe that the ability to hear came from the ability to breathe? You know, that the nose, the bones in the bones travel from the bones in the jaws to the ears. It's the idea that information can be changed to other places via this chaotic, accidental pathway, and then be expressed in such a way which becomes beneficial, isn't actually viable scientifically, because there's no data for it. The data we collect goes completely in contradiction to that.
Then
That's what I'm saying.
Why do the majority of science? Because I don't know a ton about evolution. I actually like hearing what you're saying, because I've, you know, I mean, I like, right or wrong, I like hearing these new things. But why would you speculate that the majority of scientists or evolutionary scientists who buy into all that and say the opposite?
Well, I have two answers for that, but one of them you won't like.
No, you're fine. I'm not saying open to anything. Even I listen to conspiracy theories from people. I'm not saying that's what you're gonna say, but yeah, I listen to them as well. I have a flat earther friend that I listen to everything he says. So don't worry about offending me or anything.
Okay, so the first answer I give is to say, well, I think most of these scientists who say they adhere to an evolutionary model do not adhere to a Darwinian model. I mean, that was made clear last few months ago, published in Nature, saying they need a completely remodel of the current synthesis because it's wrong. It does not. The theory does not meet up with the data collection. And that's something I was saying just now. But really, I think at the base of it is that the idea of evolution, it is an idea which is abstract from God. And I think most people who don't believe in God want to adhere to something which is satisfying, is comforting to their ears. It makes them feel good. Oh, there's another explanation. That's okay. But is it the right answer? Is it true? And I think scientifically it's not. And I think we can demonstrate with quite some confidence that the evolutionary model, the godless model if you like, is wrong. I think if you look at the two models side by side, okay, evolution says there's no mind behind it, but over time information is produced. But that doesn't make sense because there's no ability for the right genes to go down and the wrong genes to be eradicated. And what the evolutionists typically do is say, they bring out the silver bullets. They say natural selection. But natural selection only works by what dies off and allowing the good to carry on. But genes, I mean, by what basis does anodine have any superiority over another amino acid? It doesn't. So to say on the gene level that these things can be produced by natural selection just isn't actually logical. In fact, it's quite a silly thing to say, because if you're saying that, you're investing in mind. You're having to borrow from the theistic worldview.
Although when you jump to that, there has to be a mind behind it. How do you and just like what you're saying with that, if you had a mind behind it, then how do you explain, you know, all the mutations and mishaps that cause things to suffer or be born or born with organs outside the body and such?
But that's a good question. That's a fantastic question. And I believe, actually, if we look in Genesis, we see in the first day 3 to day 6, God creates all the living creatures, okay, or plants to finally man. And on day 7, obviously, on the last day, he rests. In the Jewish Tanakh, it actually says he ceased from his creation. That's what the rest is. It's the stopping of creation. But what we see in Genesis 2 is that man disobeys God. He has the option to obey God and live in the garden in harmony with all these creatures around him and without these effects which we're seeing. But what God says is, in the day you eat of that plant, you will surely die. Now, interestingly, people often say, oh, the day. But actually, there are instances in the Bible where the word day does mean from then onwards, or from this point onwards, from this period. But when, obviously in Genesis 1 to 6, when it's talking about day, it's obviously talking about actual days, because it says the evening and the morning were, you know, day 1, day 2, you know, or the morning, the evening and the morning were day 3, or the third day, or whatever. So there's a bit of confusion over the word day there, but there's literal days. But in the day when you surely die, I think that's evidence in what we see today by the accumulation of mutations. Nothing now can survive. If it's not for Jesus interjecting, jumping in, and giving us this way out of sin, and which has physical effects on the human body, which we're seeing, I think everything would die, and everything will die.
So kind of he's just letting things go the way they go and let things suffer and stuff because of what I've
Right.
because
God's
of
word doesn't change, you see.
the fall of man.
Yeah. May I ask a question real quick?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I still want to hear some more from Richard and yourself. I find the conversation fascinating. But there's something that I haven't been able to get any atheist or agnostic or atheist agnostic to actually respond to on this is, let's say that we start with the first original organism, whatever you call it, primordial soup, which has been debunked, by the way. They're going with something else now. But let's go with the first living organism. Would you admit that reproductive system replication abilities would already have to be set in place from the get-go, or said organism dies? No.
I actually take a little different because I think the first kind of things like that, if it was just one, then yeah, the possibility that it just arose and had no other ability but to live, if depending on how you define life, then yeah. But if you have a population of them and the first one dies, but then they're more like that, then it's more a chance that some of them are going to be able to divide, and if that makes any sense. So I kind of agree.
You would have to, though. You'd have to agree that the reproductive system or replication system, whatever you want to call it, Richard Dawkins describes it as almost like that of a computer, data information. The processing ability of replication, reproduction, however you want to word it, would have to be in place right away. If a species cannot reproduce, what happens to it? It dies.
He's going back to just like an amoeba or a cell or okay.
Now, Evidence, I hear you getting all excited. Even if you were to try to, let's say, claim that it was an organism like that, some kind of frog or a fish that can impregnate itself, it would still have to have the replicating ability in from the get-go. It couldn't mutate later because it would die. It has to have the ability to reproduce itself.
What if it did? What if it did develop like that? Is there a problem with something coming into being that could do that? Could divide its own self?
Well, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to run to Google or to the Pope of Atheism, Richard Dawkins, on this. You see, this information is not out there.
Yeah, I don't think it can be proven. I just didn't know if you thought there was a problem with, say right now a cell just popped up here on my desk. I don't know where or however it did, but a cell right here popped up and popped up with the ability to divide itself.
Right, exactly. It would have to have the mechanism in place from the get-go in order to replicate itself.
Is there a problem with that?
Well, the problem is that this means that the system was already in place. No mutations, no nothing. The organism at its most simplistic form would have had to been able to reproduce, replicate. There's a design there. There's a mechanism that's already started from the get-go of life. Mr. Evidence, I hear you getting shaky. I understand you're getting some anxiety. You're nervous. It's a tough one, isn't it? Take your time, breathe.
Yeah, I'm cutting you off. I apologize that I keep cutting you off.
Well, that's the point. Whether you want to go with reproductive organs or replication ability, the mechanism has to already be into place for it to make that division, as you put it anyway, to create what you would call a clone or an offspring. It has to have it or it dies.
Yeah.
Mr.
That's
Evidence.
why I asked you, Brett, if there was actually a problem with it, because I don't, abiogenesis I don't think is an established thing, and I think Dawkins even says something about like transpermia or something similar like that. And you've heard of my views at least, that I could accept an intelligence as being a creator of life. It doesn't get me to a god or anything like that, but at least life on Earth. But I don't know enough about abiogenesis to get on it, but like you're saying, an intelligence, I don't know necessarily that it had to be there, but I wouldn't rule it out as well.
That's a good play, Xbox, on your part. Even Richard Dawkins realized there was just too much information already in the first cell. That's why he went for the whole alien civilization, something beyond our Earth that started this.
Yep.
He just doesn't like the word God.
He might have the same problem that I do, because then it could be a god if I could find some reason to say it was a god. I can as far as I can get so far, and I'm in my journey of finding the truth stuff. But as far as where I'm at now is that there could be a sufficient intelligence. It could be dumber than us even, but just sufficient enough to create life, and that's what it does. Oh, probably. That's exactly what I was.
Now, I'm going to provide you a link where Richard Dawkins is actually on video, and he states that the first organism would have had enough information in it to basically be like that of a library filled with encyclopedia books. That's his own words. He describes the way a cell processes like that of a computer, actually uses the word computer. We're talking about the very first life. So much information already set in motion in order for you to get your thing going. That's the point. Let's get into the reproductive organs for a little bit. I know this is going to aggravate you, but how do you feel? Does it make sense to you? If you were to take one life, John Lennox says that it's mathematically impossible for the chemicals all to hit a trillion times over to get that life to go. You're like winning the lottery. Xbox realizes this. He knows this. We talked about this.
Yeah, I actually think I used the lottery example too.
But it gets worse. Here's where it gets worse. Whenever you go from male to having a female and you get your reproductive organs, the female has to mutate along with the male, even though they're not even the same body anymore. And one mutation off, it can't survive anymore. Would you agree with that? Okay, that's fair enough, but you did say earlier that you were getting worked up, and I heard you getting shaken. All right. Well, I'm sorry that your feelings were hurt in that situation, and we'll try to fix that for you. But would you agree that just one single life form, Xbox, being able to exist, this is like winning the lottery a trillion times. But now add a female to the equation, and you're winning the lottery twice, even 3 times over.
I think that's part of where like survival of the fittest kind of thing in biology, not the strongest, fastest, blah blah blah, but the one that can survive the best in the environment by giving off its offspring and its survival. At least from the only small parts I know of it, it would take a big chance to what you're saying with the mutations, but the survival of the fittest dictates that would happen because now you have a better chance of survival by separating this one life. Yeah. That could be this one group of life could be gobbled up by something and its babies, and they would just disappear from our existence now. But if they spread out as their sexes, they have a better chance of having offspring that survive and such.
You do realize, though, that if the male or the female were to mutate even once away from the other, this co-op evolution couldn't work. Basically, you would have to...
The only way that it could work is if it mutated to be not asexual, but forget the word, where it can switch its own sex. It would have to be a mutation like that. That would be the only way I think they could survive. Other than that, they would die off, like you said.
Now, Veckel and Rich, can you still hear me? Because I got something fascinating for you, and it's for Xbox and Evidence as well. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
You're going to like this, Veckel. Interestingly enough, if you open up to Genesis, and I know that the Bible triggers some atheists, it says that an intelligent mind already created the system in place right off the bat. And it has its answer right there. But evolution doesn't have its reproduction, doesn't have its replicating mechanism right off the bat. Go ahead, though. I'm listening.
Who's that for?
Yeah, I just wanted to know what you thought of that, Veckel.
Oh. Yeah, what about the Bible proclaiming that there's a mind behind the creation?
Well, it's not just that. Evolution doesn't have its system. It has to have a system set in place for reproduction, replication.
Oh, right.
Bible tells us that right off the bat, the intelligent mind created the mechanism that would cause reproduction. Right off the bat. That answers the question.
Yeah.
Evolution doesn't have that answer.
Bible makes it very clear.
Why do you need that right off the bat? I don't understand the issue. What's the problem?
Because if you don't have reproduction or replication ability right off the bat, your living entity, organism, dies. It's over. Game over.
Well, according to evolution, single-cell organisms and then eventually multi-cells reproduced asexually, simply by mitosis.
Okay, and I was saying earlier that even if you took a frog or a fish routine of stating that it could replicate itself using its own system, you'd still have to have the system already in place. If you don't, your creature dies. It's over.
Yeah, well, the first cell organisms did have it in place.
All right, how'd it get there?
Well, you want to talk about abiogenesis or evolution? Take your pick.
We're talking about the first original organism.
So that were probably abiogenesis, right?
That's what we're going with, and I like the fact that science named it Genesis. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know, right?
Well, that just means, beginning,
Well, wouldn't it kind of follow that if the first life form came out, then something before it was actually the thing with the reproduction system that made it? So it wouldn't actually be like the first cell already having this and being a problem.
Yeah, like RNA, I think, might be able to reproduce itself and so forth. But abiogenesis is still a mystery. But that doesn't negate all the evidence we have for origins of species. And can you offer an explanation about how your God created humans out of dust?
Well, you guys claim that we come from the materials of the earth. Are you debunking that now?
No, I just, you constantly demand a rigorous scientific theory for abiogenesis, but I see no theory at all scientifically offered for any of Christian claims.
Richard, are you in the mood? I see your mic ready to go.
I was just going to answer Floyd. Well, the Bible offers a cohesive operation rather than a gradual, blind chance operation.
Would you explain that? Because usually all we hear is an assertion, like God picked dirt up and made man. Like there's no mechanism there.
Sure. Okay then. Well, in the beginning, we know I'm talking about the Bible here, not the evolution theory. In the Bible, we hear that God created man from the earth, but then God breathed into his nostril the breath of life. Life is a separate element itself from the material. This is evidenced itself when people die. When people are dead, the body's still there, the life has left the body. And you can say, well, it's a breakdown of the organs, the ability for the machine to respirate, or for the blood to pump around the body, or these sorts of things. Yes, these are to be taken into consideration. But people who have been resuscitated, who have been pronounced dead for long periods of time, in fact, there was a study published not long ago. Look at the what's it called now? What's it called now? These people have these. What's it called now? No. You know the thing where they bring them back to life from the surgery, and they've seen things, and what's it called now? It's got
near-death experience.
That's it. Near-death experiences. That's it. Well, there was an interesting study because they questioned all these people who claimed to have had them, and some of these people, they narrowed it down, had such descriptive visions of what they'd seen when they'd been pronounced dead for quite a long period of time, that the people who published the paper, and this is published in the Medical Sciences, were saying we actually have to take this more seriously now, being that these people, I mean, one of these people in the paper, if I can find it, I'll probably post it on the side there. They were saying they described the back of this doctor's head being bald, and the way he looked and the way he carried himself as he lumbered across the room, this sort of thing, when the person never actually saw the doctor who was resuscitating him. And these sorts of descriptive things, they said they have to amend the description of what it means to be dead, because people are having these such out-of-body experiences. Now,
how's any of this evidence for Yahweh creating humans out of dust?
Hang on. Well, hang on a second. I did go off on a bit of a tangent there, but my point was this: that the breath of God is something which is the added ingredient to the mix, but the bringing together of the body itself was a cohesive operation, which is the bringing together the parts needed to, for a human form, for a dog form, for a bear form, for an elephant form, these sorts of things. But God's breathed life into them. That's what makes them alive. That's what animates a creature definitively. That's what makes you move. What allows you to think, which allows you to be, is the fact you have life in you.
Where have we seen any God breathe at all?
Yes, you're living evidence of it.
Well, you're begging the question. We haven't seen any God breathe at all.
No, you haven't seen God.
Does a God breathe into plants to make plants live? When does God breathe into a fetus and when it's born? When is breath breathed in then?
Well, you talk about, there's two different things. I mean, they're quite long subjects. Plants don't breathe in the same way humans do, obviously, or the same way animals do. But if you talk about plants were made for meat. plants made for us to eat, for all the animals to consume originally, and it was after the curse they acquired their thorns and their poisons and stuff, which obviously today makes them less appetizing, I suppose, to creatures, and or creatures have adapted to consume those poisons and such. But if you're talking about God, if you're speaking about God himself, you've got to remember, Jesus says, God is a spirit, my Father is a spirit. God isn't like you or I. We are made in his image. We're made in the image of Christ come. Christ came as a man in flesh. But God himself, when he breathes in, it's a spiritual thing. And you might say, well, we see no evidence of that. But we're all evidence of that. We're all alive here. And it's by the grace of God we've been given this great gift of life.
Well, you're affirming a consequence there. The consequence, it's a form of logical
What's the evidence? You asked for evidence. That's the evidence.
No, it's not evidence. You're presupposing God did it. You said, if God, then life, therefore God. That's known as a fallacy of affirming the consequence.
Now, Floyd, you brought up something fascinating. You brought up the plants, and that's interesting because that's pretty much a dichotomy along with the reproductive system and cell replication. In order for the living organism to exist and continue to survive, the plant life would have had to have a symbiotic relationship, I believe is what it's referred to evolve along with the living organism at the same time in sync, or the creature would not be able to exist. There had to have been something that it could feed off of, something it could breathe from, all at the same time.
Well, are you aware of how, like, a flower reproduces?
I understand how plants work, Floyd, but you have to agree that in order for the life form to exist, the plants would have had to work within the system along with the living organism.
Well, everything's working within the system. If it doesn't work in the system, it dies out. Now, it didn't have to start with you know, of bees pollinating them and so forth. That's why I asked you, are you aware of how flowers reproduce? Because it sounds like you don't. If you did, I don't think you wouldn't have asked that question.
Well, I don't have any kind of issue here, but you have to admit that the plants would have had to go right along with it. Everything would have had to have been perfectly system set in place.
No, that's not true at all. It can,
so we don't need the plants to exist. We don't need the sunlight at the same time to exist, or the water. None of this, right?
No, well, the sun came first. The sun came first, and then gravity formed the planets. You know, we could have had organic life, or not organic life, but organic molecules come from like comets and so forth, which landed on Earth. You know, the sun, you know, provides energy to the world. All those things were in place first, where in Genesis 1, it actually has the plants existing before the sun.
Well, what do you think about that, Bethel? I'm listening.
Oh, well.
Wake up, Bethel.
He's studying the flat Earth.
Actually, just to do a little plug. Friday night, I'm having a hangout where I'm going to exegete Genesis 1. So it's kind of a little bit on topic of this, but I'm going to go over you know, Genesis 1 and Bible cosmology and topics like you know, how do you reconcile general revelation with special revelation, topics like that. So small plug, 8 p.m. Eastern, my channel.
Yeah, awesome. Hey, Jordan, did you have any thoughts on what Floyd was saying to Brett? Did you hear it all? Yeah, I wasn't sure if you heard it all. But wasn't trying to put you on the spot.
I did, but remind me again what it was. I heard him talking about it. Just remind me what it was. I just lost my train of thought.
Well, I was just saying how just one mechanism occurred after another where we have life today. Now, Brett, I often hear you say, did we evolve from rats? I think the correct response to that is that humans, as they are today, and rats, as they are today, came from a common ancestry. So we didn't come from rats as we know them today. We came from a common ancestry, which were neither human nor like today's modern rats. Because you got to remember, after each birth, the offspring is slightly different than the parents. And if this goes on from generation to generation, and then you isolate certain groups, you're going to get significant differences to a point where they're not breeding with each other because they're simply isolated. They're simply different areas of the world, or it gets to a point where they cannot reproduce because their genes are so different at that point that it's not possible to reproduce, and that's where we get speciation.
All right. Now, I hope you all recall what he just said. I've just posted a link here. Right under the picture of the rat creature, it says, discovered what we were before we were monkeys.
Mm-hmm.
Rats. Ancient rats are among our ancestors.
Right.
And you believe that you evolved from a rat, correct?
Not from today's rats, like I said, but a common ancestry that would certainly look more like a rat than a human. That's for sure, or any modern primate.
You see, Brett, they evolved from a very special kind of rat, a rat that can't be scientifically measured, weighed, understood in any way. It's just the same
No,
faith
that's
we
not
have
true at all. That's not true at all.
It's exactly what you're doing. Exactly what you're doing. But you
No.
sit there,
In fact, Brett actually posted an article offering evidence for that rat. So I don't know what you're talking about, no evidence, where Brett actually posted the article, which gives you the evidence.
No, actually, what it says, if you look under it, it says ancient rats may be among our ancestors.
Right. Well, we can follow the biological tree back, and we can do. There's. I don't know if you're aware of the evolutionary tree, but
or may we have done this?
Well, I mean, we don't have we don't have these species today, so we just have to follow the DNA and fossil record trail.
All right, I'll tell you what. I'll make a deal with you. I'll sing some kind of weird Bon Jovi song if you can show me a transition between the rat and the primate, please.
Well, I can't offhand, but we both have Google
and you got
available to us.
Transitional fossils, right? You got to show me one rat-ape creature transition.
Well, I could Google it and see what comes up. I don't have that offhand.
Google it. Find me a rat-ape. I'll be waiting for you. I'm patient, man. But don't take too long. I might evolve.
Hold on. Just grab him a crocodile.
Yeah. Can you show me life just popping into existence like in Genesis?
Well, isn't that what you guys claiming happened? Life just poofed into existence.
In fact, if you take the Bible literally, you believe in hyper macroevolution. If only one pair of animal came off the ark 4,300 years ago, I'd like to know how you explain all the species that exist today if it came from one species off an ark.
I'll be more than happy to discuss that with you, but I'm going to need my rat-ape creature first.
I guess we'll both be waiting then.
Well, I can explain that.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Well, if you look at the rate of mutations within any population of creatures, be it humans or whatever, take your pick of any species you like, and if you look at the rate of mutation, all you do is track it backwards, and you've got to see that as things keep reproducing, if the population is large, then the mutation rate is slowed down. But if the population is small, then you're going to have a more, if you're tracking it backwards, you're going to have a more purified genome to go from. Therefore, you'll be able to produce more variety. It's common sense. It never equates to evolution whatsoever.
Well, if that was the case, then we would be seeing new species pop in every day for 43. Well, again, this happened 4,300 years. We're talking.
No, we're not talking about species. We're talking about variation within certain kinds. We talk about spiders, talk about flies, talking about.
So you're saying on the ark, every single species of spider was on that ark?
No, I'm talking about there was a species kind. There was a kind of spider.
So there are two spiders, male and female, on that ark, right?
Listen,
from those two spiders in 4,300 years, we have all these different species of spiders.
Absolutely.
Boy,
absolutely.
Talk. Boy, you're the guys who really believe in the miraculous effects of evolution.
It's
not evolution.
At least we give it millions of years.
You're saying it's hybrid.
You have new species popping into existence, being born, every day.
Not species.
Talk about a miracle. Your guys' evolution theory is amazing. Wow.
Oh dear. I don't think you're understanding the magnitude.
Well, you have to explain to me how you start with two spiders and you get all the different species we have today.
I did try to, but you stepped over me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go right ahead. I'm sorry.
Right. If you can measure the rate of mutations today, and it's increasing at a certain rate. If you backtrack it, where there would be less mutation within the genome, within a reproducing pair, if you only go back 4,000 years odd, you're going to be able to produce creatures with a lot more variety than you would today. That's completely consistent by measurement today, as it is with the Bible's description of those creatures coming off the ark and reproducing. There's nothing evolutionary about it at all. The very fact we can measure those mutation rates go complete contradiction to the Darwinian theory. Remember, it's your theory that postulates that a common ancestor, insert imagination here, had mass offspring, and those survivors are the ones which reproduce today, which account for all the species. So you had to have multiple species of spider inside your theory, whereas and the ones which survive today are there because the predecessors died off. Have made it through. So the problem is in the Darwinian theory.
Say that
consistent scientifically.
No, say that again. What you said there didn't make sense to me. So you have a variety of species of spiders. Okay, some will die out, some will continue to breed, right?
Yeah.
All right, and then through genetic mutation and genetic drift and natural selection, we're going to get different species from that, from groups, right?
If you're determining a species by its traits, which are really dominant in that lineage, then yes.
Right. So how is that a problem over millions of years?
That's a problem because the mutation rate's too grand. Realistically, your evolution, all creatures that are alive today would have been dead millions of years ago. Nothing would have made it off the starting block. If you are serious about evolution, you've only got to look at the mutation rates and the fixation rates to see that it's not consistent. I mean, today right now.
Some species are going to survive, some won't. In fact, according to science, over 99.9% of species that existed are now extinct. Now, there's over 43,000 spider species right now. All right, so if you divide that by 4,300 years, that gives you and these are just the ones we know about.
Yeah.
We find that means there's 10 new species every year that would pop into existence if I'm doing the math right.
And that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Think about it. All right, here's a good analogy. You have produce a piece of music and you copy it onto a CD. Now you make a copy of that CD and you pass it on to someone else. Now, let's say that person makes a copy of the CD and so on and so forth. They pass that CD along. But let's say with each copy of the CD there's a distortion in which the music becomes slightly different, a variant. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
So you have a variant of the original copy of the CD. The music's still there, but whatever is copied on from each variant is going to be determined as a new species, if you like, a new variant of that original kind. You said it yourself in your question. You said if there was X amount of spider species today, you said it yourself, spider kind. You talk about the kind of animal. If you backtrack it, you can just take the variations of that single kind. It's fairly simple.
Well, you're talking about radical mutations after each birth.
No, not really.
Yes, you
You've
are.
only got to, well, no, because look, you could do it with flies.
In a period of 4,300 years. Again, you have radical mutations and changes going on. And in some species where we have many, again, we'd be noticing new species, every day.
All right, guys, I'm back, and I'm looking at my chat screen, and I don't see a link to my rat ape. Did you ever get me my rat ape? You see, atheists like talk about burden of proof. You ask anybody that's a believer, they're going to tell you, hey, there's faith here. There's a belief. But you guys claim to have the facts and the evidence, so I want my damn evidence. Where's the link of the rat ape?
Well, why don't you just Google transitional fossils, and you'll see plenty of them. I'm not sure if you'll find your rat ape, but
well, I want my rat ape.
Well,
if you'd like to show me a transition between the fish and the
well, first of all, there wouldn't be a transition from a rat to an ape, right? You might have a slightly bigger rat. I mean, isn't that what you'd be looking for?
Well, I would like you to show me the transition of the rat to the primate, and I also want you to be able to prove to me that this is our human ancestry.
Well, again, I recommend Google transitional fossils. You'll see a gradual change, through the dirt layers.
A suggestion on where to go? Where would I find this?
Okay, well, I will Google.
All right, I appreciate it. That's what they always say, don't they? Burden of proof's on you. Well, you guys claim to have the facts, the evidence, the proof. I'm claiming to have a belief, claiming to have faith. All right. I'll tell you what evidence. I'll make things even easier for you. He looks for my rat ape. You look for my human ancestry lizard that came out of the water. All right, and prove to me that that is actually a part of the human genome. That it actually is a part of our ancestry. Go ahead. Evolution of the gap says it.
No fossils would count as evidence, not in a true sense of evidence, because you'd have to prove they had descendants. You can't prove any fossil had any offspring. You just can't prove that.
Is this my rat ape?
Say that.
Well, if Jordan, everything alive today has had parents, right?
No. Well, I'm just saying you can't prove if you found let's say something that went extinct in the flood, okay, and you find this animal, and it happens to have characteristics of, let's say it's some kind of a reptile, for example, and, we don't have any of those today. That doesn't necessarily mean that it wasn't something that went extinct in the flood. It may have similar characteristics of other things. We look around us today and see things with similar characteristics. So
what evidence do we have of a flood that occurred 400 years ago?
Hang on, just 2 seconds. Do we have evidence of fossils?
Wait a second. Hold on a second here. You didn't give me my rat ape. You gave me a bunch of damn frogs and tadpoles.
I'm looking for your rat ape. Don't worry. I'll find you one.
Rat ape. I want my
I don't know that there's one, but I'll look for you one. My question was this. if we have all these fossils from the flood, the biblical flood, like you say, do we find human fossils of all the people that were wiped out as well?
Now, Mr. Xbox, I've been more than happy to answer any questions given to me, and I've been answering for hours here now in this thing. Now, all I'm asking is my question be answered, and then we'll proceed. I want my rat ape.
No, I'm looking for your
Mr. Evidence, you find me my human lizard creature that's a part of our ancestry, and Mr. Floyd, you get me my rat ape. I'm making it easy, aren't you? I want that funky looking thing that comes out of the water.
Yeah, that would disprove evolution. But
So you're basically telling me that the creature that comes out of water that's no longer a part of it, it grew legs and arms and crawled up on land, and you ain't got that. I ask you, Mr. Floyd, for a rat ape. So I go to your new page, 50 million years, old fossil, earliest known primate discovered. I'm looking, and I see a monkey with an extremely long tail. I think I've seen one of them in the zoo once, and it looks like it's about to eat a grasshopper. Poor thing. But what I find interesting about this particular site is it's a cartoon. I want an actual rat ape. Come on, man.
I got you a lizard, man.
How would you like it if I were to give you a picture of Mickey Mouse and say, go for it? Come on. Seriously.
Hold on, I got you a lizard, man. I'm still looking for a rat ape, but I found you a lizard.
I'm starting to get anxiety here. Where's my lizard?
Hold on, here, I'm screen sharing it. I got a lizard man there.
All right, let's do some lizards here.
Okay, well, this one has fossils of that primate from the other article that I gave you.
You gave me a cartoon, man.
Well, go to that next one. There's fossils on that one.
All right, did you actually look at this one before you handed it to me?
Oh, it has the same cartoon picture, and they have fossils talking about that.
More cartoons?
Oh no, go look at it. There's fossils on there too.
All right, I'll look at it. Let's see what we got. Okay.
Now, are you guys aware that we have trees, living trees now that are older than 6,000 years? Are you aware of that?
This is not a rat ape.
What would it look like? What would the structure look like if it was?
I don't know. You guys are the one that invented it.
Then how could you say no then?
Well, that's why I'm giving you the opportunity to show the facts.
Well, I showed it to you, but you denied it right away.
But
then you said you don't know. Well, we'll choose it. I'll be right back.
It's a cartoon of a monkey with an extremely long tail eating a grasshopper. It's a cartoon, man. Look, I love cartoons. I used to dig G.I. Joe and Transformers and He-Man, but I never looked at it and said, man, this is how we evolved. Seriously?
Hold on, hey, are you just dismissing my lizard man over here that I'm screen sharing?
Do that. Where's your lizard? Oh, I see your link now. Let me check. Xbox would never sit there and insult my intelligence. I bet he's going to show me something interesting here. Let's take a look.
Yeah, it is pretty funny.
That's a modern guy that had his tongue split in half. I think Gene Simmons tried that too. It didn't work out too good for him.
Right up here on his eyebrows too, he has like silicone type implant things or something.
You do realize
that's the closest.
You do realize you're not helping the other atheists in the room. You're making them look goofy.
I know. I was making a joke. I know.
So I got a good sense of humor.
Well,
Richard,
I don't know.
take over for
Maybe he's a man transitioning into a lizard. There you go.
Oh boy, Rich, you want to take over for a little bit? Back with Jordan. I need to grab something.
Yeah, I just had to add some levity into this. I just had people calm down.
Well, I'm going to
It would
disappear in a
just
minute.
bring evolution.
So.
Sorry, say that again, Richard.
No, it's okay. I was just going to say I'm going to go off to bed in a minute. I haven't been feeling too well today, so...
Oh, man, we'll
I have
feel
to get
better.
some sleep.
Yeah, and I haven't seen you in our hangouts in a while, but, man, you're always welcome to come in there.
But cheers, mate. Yeah, I'll pop in sometime.
And I'm glad like your mic's working. I know you were having problems before with your voice and mic, so... But, yeah, you're welcome to come in there. You know, I don't let it get... It might get heated or passionate, but I don't let people get into huge fights, personal attacks, and all that stuff, so...
Yeah, I like good people. Now,
I gotta go. So, cheers, guys. Good night. God bless.
Yeah, good night. Feel better.
See you later, bro.
Cheers.
Dubs, you alive over there?
I'm hanging in there. I'm trying. What's up, Mel?
I have not got me a great deal of sleep and everything like that. You want to do one of these things later on after we've gotten some rest? I'm starting to see spots.
Oh, you saying you wanna open up another hangout later?
Yeah, later.
All right. Yeah, sure. No problem.
You guys want to plug your channels and stuff like that? Tell everybody, hey, come on over. I'll show you some rat ape action or something.
Yeah, sure, because a lot of people have a hard time finding mine because Google swapped my name out a little bit. But if you look on YouTube and search Xbox F, the letter F, all is one word, my channel will pop right up, and it's got this Hello Kitty picture as the thing. We have usually about an 8-hour hangout every day just so people can have full conversations and not have a time limit kind of thing.
I would recommend that you post it into the actual audience chat so people can just click on it and go to your channel and make it more convenient for them.
Oh yeah, is that on the external chat you mean?
Yeah.
Okay, right on.
Mr. Floyd, would you like to advertise your YouTube channel? Get people over there so you can do your hangouts?
Yeah, thanks. Floyd space FP, Floyd FP. I'm on YouTube and Google Plus, and like I said, I have a on-air hangout Friday night. We're going to talk about Bible cosmology, and we're going to exegete Genesis 1 and talk about general revelation and special revelation. So if you guys are interested, you can join me then.
Oh yeah, let me add too on my hangout thing. Almost every day we have one. They usually start around 4 or 5. The live part starts around 4 or 5 p.m. Central Time. We're usually there as soon as we wake up. We'll have the off-air up until then, but it's usually every day. Then lasts about 8 hours, just so I give a time on it.
Ooh, he's a Pink Floyd fan. I can tell him I like Floyd a lot. Oh yeah,
Floyd's great.
I do love me some Pink Floyd. Beckel, do you want to advertise your channel? Lindsay, Jordan, Faith, the Dinosaur Park Lady, Jurassic Park is in the dark, evidence.
Man, I just wanted to say something real quick. What is Floyd, his whole thing about, Googling everything? Like, it seems like a lot of atheists like to criticize the Christians for always using Google, and it seems like Floyd always gets his evidence from Google.
Well,
what's that all about?
I know that atheists give us trouble over that, but I'm not going to give atheists trouble. If they can find me a rat ape and stuff, it'll be fair.
So being a Googleologist is the new thing now in the atheist community?
Well, I have no trouble with people using Google. I use Google all the time. You can even use Wikipedia. I don't care.
Just as long as you're not using it as an authority. If you're using it as an example or maybe like a teaching kind of tool, I have no problem with that either.
No disrespect to Floyd, but I kind of feel like he was using it as his authority because like every single time Brett asked him a question, because I was watching the chat before I came in.
All right, why don't we?
To be fair, Mr. Faithful, I understand what you're coming from. I understand some atheists have given you some trouble, but I did actually suggest to Floyd, if he wants to, go grab you Google and do it. I actually, encouraged him to do that. We can't get on Floyd. Plus, he likes Pink Floyd, so I have to dig him. Next.
Faith, you want to plug your channel real quick? Still alive over there?
Yeah, Jordan, you want to try throwing something out there?
No. Are you getting ready to close down the Hangout?
Yeah, I haven't slept a great deal. I've been hanging out with Nadia and her crowd, and
Real quick, would you mind on the side there, Brett? Would you put the link to your channel so that I can add this in the comments? I'll add my link there.
Yeah, no problem. Do we have the link to the outside of this thing, Dubs? Oh, there it is, right there. So you guys can leave your links in there. That way, the audience on the outside can just click, bam, subscribe to you, comment, rate, harass you on a daily basis. All good times. All right, my name is Brett Keane from God TV Radio Show. Make sure you subscribe, comment, rate. Also, subscribe, comment, rate to Brett Keane Superstar as well as Games You Love. We will be opening up more live hangouts and having great discussions. And when I'm not doing that, Xbox, Floyd, and whoever else likes to open up hangouts, so it'll be available to you. See you later. Yeah.
Everybody have a good day. Awesome. I appreciate it, man. Now that you dropped, but and to all of y'all, I like the convo. I don't necessarily agree with a lot of stuff, but I like the convo. Yeah. Yeah, right. And evidence, you know, you're always welcome to mine. Sometimes ours are around the same time, and Floyd has them too. But if like you run yours and you end and you feel like you still wanna even come to BS, you're always welcome. If it's full, message me, and we usually make room for anybody. If someone's not contributing or something for a while, we'll ask them to step out and let people in. Beckel gets in like that all the time. Floyd does too. Oh, right on. Yeah, I'll add to the... Yeah, yeah. Great. Thanks, man. Have a good night, man.